Disappointing team. This is easy. I'm sticking home. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. Um, the one thing I'm getting real sick of hearing with this team from quarterback Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, and especially the Kansas City Chiefs offense is this. This is what I'm sick of hearing. Hey, we're getting better each week. I can see it on the film. We're still making these mistakes, but players are where they need to be. We're getting better. We're getting this thing reeled in. We're going into week 15, boys. This is unacceptable. Andy, in all the time that you've been there, you've had these mistakes corrected. Or when you didn't have the horses on the outside, like when you first got there with Alex Smith, you ran the ball more and you had more two tight end sets. But just the careless penalties that this team has each week. 3rd and 6, we're going to have a false start. Big run play that's going to come back because of a holding. Rashid Rice has a nice catch in the 4th quarter going towards the red zone. He's going to fumble. MVS in the 1st quarter, him and Pat Mahomes, they're not thinking the same thing on a 3rd down route. You can see the camera goes to Pat and he's putting his hand on his head. MVS is doing the same thing, like, no, I saw this. In the 4th quarter, on another 3rd down pass, Sky Moore, he's not cutting his route shorter and making it flatter. Romo said that in the broadcast. It's the same mistakes that this Chiefs team is making week after week, and it's like, I'm sick of you guys saying, oh, we're getting better. No, you're not, because you're not even putting up 20 points a game. Before it was they can't score in the second half. Now it's they can't score in the first half. And you have the boneheaded mistake of not checking with official to make sure that you're not offsides.
Time out here. It cost Travis Kelce a spot in the Hall of Fame. He's too good of a player. They shouldn't call that because it was such a great play.
Now you sound as ridiculous as Pat Mahomes, and I can't take you serious. So get out of here with that. It's just the year where this defense is firing on all cylinders, and you listen to these wide receivers talk in the offseason, training camp. Hey, someone in this room's not going to make the team because we just have too many dogs on this team. There's so many good players. No, you're not. They're all horrible. I mean, these receivers have cost this team probably at least 4 games this year. So the fact with this veteran coaching staff and just normally how the Chiefs figured out in December, how they haven't figured it out, that's my disappointing team of the week.
I think they miss Eric Bieniemy because he was that light a fire underneath your ass guy. He was the guy that was, that would break you down and have Andy Reid build you back up.
Dylan, I'll take it.
He was the hold people accountable in the building guy.
I'll say this. Another coach they're missing that no one's going to say in the media, Greg Lewis. Greg Lewis is now in Baltimore. He's the Baltimore receivers coach. Zay Flowers. Odell coming off the injury. Rashad Bateman has played well at points this year. These Baltimore receivers are getting better, and this Baltimore offense is playing better and better each week without Mark Andrews. So, Greg Lewis is not there in Kansas City anymore. Last year, Juju, he got it figured out. He had 70 catches for 1,000 yards. So it's a combination, I think, of missing those 2 assistants, Dylan, like you said. It's coming back to rear its ugly head on this team.
Greg Lewis, that's the guy that had the catch from Favre against the Niners. That's Greg Lewis. Okay,
yeah, that Greg Lewis.
I bet you he looks like a guy too that similar to Al Harris of the Cowboys that could go out there and probably catch 3 touchdowns, give 500 yards in a game.
And then I'll say this: the last 2 years, Greg Lewis was the receivers coach in Kansas City from 17 to 20, when Tyreek, Sammy Watkins, and Demarcus Robinson were doing their thing. In these last 2 years, in 21 and 22, he was a running backs coach. Pacheco, 7th round pick, and the Jerick McKinnon coming off the 2 knee injuries. So you miss a coach like that with these young players at these positions they have that are inexperienced, it's coming back to bite them. So Baltimore's gain was Kansas City's loss, and missing Greg Lewis.
Yeah, and a little bit. I don't want to go that far, but some of this Chiefs team reminds me a little bit of the 2019 Patriots team where the receivers struggled to get separation. They were outside of Isaiah Pacheco. The Chiefs really aren't able to run the ball either. But especially with the receivers. These receivers give off the 2019 Patriots vibes where they just nobody could get open. There's no separation, and they just struggle to move the ball in a sense. I don't think it's to that level, but if we're comparing what we're used to seeing, that explosiveness of the Chiefs offense where they can still somewhat move the ball, but then there's struggle to get open, and then there's just those mistakes of lining up off sides or checking with the ref and just
and just drop
outside
passes this
outside
year.
of drop passes. Outside of Travis Kelce, there's really nobody Mahomes trusts. And I think Rashee Rice is someone too that couldn't get there, but he's still, I mean, he had a fumble on Sunday as well.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, the one player now that he's technically off the commissioner exempt list and the games he missed, the NFL was qualifying for a suspension. I think you have to give Justin Ross more opportunities to get on the field. The one time he had some significant playing time this year was against Minnesota, and he had that nice, I think 18 or 20-yard reception that kind of got a drive going. And with how they've stalled out this year, they need some explosiveness. So get the former 5-star player from Tampa on the field and see if he can bring some light to this offense and some juice.
What was your reaction when the Kelce to Tony play happened, and then you see there's a flag and they call the call that they call
It was the
on Tony?
ultimate Cobra reaction, like jaws down. I don't really think I just kind of sat there in quiet for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then of course the game ends, and Mahomes is going to kill the official, and I went back to watch that to see who he was giving the business to, because Caleb texted me. He says, "Dude, what was he so pissed off about?" I go, "He's either giving the business to the official or he's pissed off at the offense in general." And Caleb and I originally thought it was just the offense, and then you look back and you're like, "Oh no, he was headhunting for that official."
Yeah.
So I had to watch that again just to see it. But Dylan, it was the viral Michigan fan against Michigan State.
Oh.
And
that's
just
what we really should do is
culmination of just the last couple weeks, just the mistakes and the stupidness. Last week against Green Bay in the first half, having nice drives, having to kick field goals, and then this week, even the first drive this week, they're going right down the field against a good Buffalo team off a bye. Mahomes wants to throw a screen pass. AJ Epinesa tips the ball in the air and picks it off. Boom, kills the drive just like that. And it's just, and then on Buffalo's first touchdown drive, when James Cook runs down the middle of the field wide open. I tell this to Ethan all the time, and how are running backs never covered in this league? They're eligible receivers, and they are just running scot-free. It makes no sense. And the Allen falling towards a sideline, his body's turned at an angle and hucks it down to Latavius. But then Latavius fumbles, and Mike Edwards has a chance to get the ball up, and he can't fall on it. Like, it would have been Chiefs ball around midfield. So it was just, that play was just the culmination of how these last 4 weeks have gone. Like, it's right there, but they find a way to mess it up.
Did you initially did you think it was bullshit, or did you think it was the right call?
Oh, when I saw the replay, it was the right call. I mean, the dude was damn near lined up on the defensive side of the field. He was almost playing pass rush with Von Miller with how far he was lined up. I was like, well, you can't do it.
And the funny part about it too is, like, they show the video. Oh yeah, he checked. I was like, putting your arm out as you're running to the line and then looking away before you're actually even set is not checking with the official.
That first part was letting the official know that, hey, I'm supposed to be on the line of scrimmage. I'm covering up the tackle, not, hey, am I good? So that's just the internet, and that's just the toxic Chiefs fans out there trying to cry their way into having people feel bad about them.
Yeah, and it was a very, very, very toxic. And Mitchell Schwartz actually did a good job of talking about, like, because they showed, like, the Von Miller clip where you can't really get a good angle of if he was lined up. Yeah, his head's across the blue line. Well, for one, the blue line isn't official.
Yeah.
And did a good job of explaining. I'm not going to go into it all. You can go
And then
check it out
also,
for
even
yourself.
on that last drive, guys, the Tony play was on first down. They had a 2nd and 10 where Ed Oliver made a nice play. I'll give him his flowers. 3rd down, it was just an incomplete pass to someone. And then on 4th down, what's Gregory's name? Rusuro, the defensive end.
Russo.
Russo, thank you. He gets chipped. He then has to go around. Taylor has 3 seconds to attempt to block him. He doesn't throw a punch with his hands. He keeps his hands right next to his chest. Russo goes right around him and hits Mahomes' arm. It's little plays like that where they're just not doing their fundamentals, where it's disappointing to watch, because Andy always talks about how when he hires coaches, he hires teachers, people who teach football, and there must be no teachers on the offensive side this year, especially in the receiver and offensive line room, because they're making the same mistakes each week and they're killing themselves.
Yeah, but Ethan, who do you got for your disappointing team of the week?
I'm going back with the Eagles. I think I picked them a couple of weeks ago, but second straight week they've basically been a no-show on primetime TV, or I guess close to it. And it all comes down to the run game. They are not just a drop back pass. There you go. Yeah, nice game. I watched some of it. Good game. As much as they might want Hurts to be a drop back passer, pocket passer, that's not what he is. Their whole offense is basically predicated on getting the run game going, and they haven't been able to do that versus elite teams all year. Even versus the Vikings, I guess Swift had a good game, but that was before the Vikings defense was really what the Vikings are. Right now, they wouldn't do that. That wouldn't happen versus Vikings defense. If they want to get better, their O-line needs to figure it out, and they need to run for more than like 80 yards, and 30 to 40 of that is literally just Hurts scrambling for his life.
Yeah. Well, and Grant and I, we were texting back and forth of that game too, and we were all in the second half. It was almost like in the first half, Nick Sirianni forgot that he had DeAndre Swift on his roster. I don't even think he had a touch, and it was just a arrogant, confusing game plan by him. Where, I mean, and the Eagles did move the ball well, but then they would turn it over. And Dallas did, to their credit, they did a good job of getting it back, getting him into those obvious passing situations, and then did a good job of punching the ball out and forcing turnovers. But then in the second half, that first drive, Eagles came out running the ball like, oh, there's DeAndre Swift. And that was the first time all night that they actually looked like they had a pulse when they gave him the ball. But at that point, it was almost too little too late, because Dallas was up 3 scores, and Dallas isn't going to care if you go ahead, run the ball. You don't use 8 minutes of this. Use 8 minutes of the third quarter. I don't care. This is just going to take possessions away from you guys. But
did you guys?
I hope it continues.
Did you guys see in that Dallas's first drive when they're marching down the field, they panned over to Sirianni? Did you see how awful he looked? Like Nick looked.
I might be biased, but I think he always looks awful.
Well, okay, that's fair. But like he looked like extra bad. Like it had serious black bags underneath his eyes. He looked sick. He looked stressed out. It was a combination of maybe he had a sick kid at home. He wasn't getting a whole lot of sleep that week. And maybe he just straight up knew at that moment that this game was over. And he knew that his team had issues. Because once I saw that, Dylan, it was still 0-0. I was like, this game's over. Dallas is going to roll these guys. He didn't have his normal arrogance or cockiness or confidence. He had oh boy, we have some issues on this team, problems right now. Like, yeah, hey, we could beat the Lions, the Bucks, the Seahawks, whatever in the playoffs, but it's almost like, because coaches know. They know if their team is good or if their team is bad.
Or when they're about to get their ass kicked, yes.
100%. He almost had the look on his face like, we can't play with Dallas and San Francisco. Like, it was a look of just almost distraught, but it looked rough.
Yeah, and well, I'm happy, and he's got his work cut out for him too, because the Seahawks are down, but they are a different team when they play at CenturyLink or play at home and on Monday night. So the 12s are going to be fired up. But my disappointing team is it has to be the Miami Dolphins. They came out sluggish. The offense looked lost. Tua looked uncomfortable all night. The running game finally got going. That was when they had their success. And then they finally got a hold of the game, and they got up 2 scores with 4 minutes to go. I had Dolphins minus 13.5, and I thought, heck yeah, we're rolling. This is good. Tennessee is falling off. They're going to cover. I'm going to go 4-1 for the week. And they're still sitting in the pole position in the AFC. And then all of a sudden, it just, like that in the blink of an eye. Defensively, they just went conservative. They basically a prevent and let Will Levis and Titans offense just walk down the field without any resistance at all. And, watching, I don't know, Grant, if you watched Hard Knocks last night, but when they showed the practice of Mike, and Mike was kind of getting on those guys, which I think this is showing, like, Mike McDaniel when you see him in these interviews and you look at him, he's kind of dorky, nerdy looking.
Well, he's an Ivy League guy. He's a Yale graduate. He's a nerd. He's a nerd.
He is nerdy, but he's also one that he's not afraid to jump in your ass. He's going to get serious. And it felt like just kind of the way that was trending, where they didn't look like they were their practices were sharp and they just looked off all week. It felt like that was a possibility of what was going to happen, and it did.
Yeah, Dylan, to your point, if you saw that team meeting last Wednesday, you would have thought on Monday they're going to lay an egg tonight. Because I thought that right away. The first couple plays of practice, Tua was off. He was throwing interceptions. They just kind of looked like, hey, we're happy to be here. Mike brought up the fact that they're the number 1 seed now in the AFC. If you could have seen it before, you would have been like, yeah, this team's in trouble. And I don't know, Dylan. I even get that vibe from watching all 4 of the episodes so far. Just in their team meetings, people don't seem to be interested. They're just kind of there. Their quarterback room, the outside linebacker room, nobody's really invested into it. They're kind of there. We're happy to be on a winning team. We're in South Florida, and people just don't care a whole lot.
Which is also surprising too, because they got Vic Fangio as the D coordinator.
Yeah, but also Vic, you can tell he doesn't want to be around the camera. So, but yeah, to your point, maybe in the defensive team meetings he gets after these guys a little more, but they just the current roster of the Dolphins just kind of doesn't seem to be all in, or who knows, maybe that's just how NFL meeting rooms are these days, but it's just a very lackluster, and mentally they weren't prepared to play. You could tell.